Okay, well, welcome everyone in the room and also online. I'm getting some indications that people can hear me, so let's make a start. Hey, my name's Katie Ellis. I'm the Director for the Centre of Culture and Technology. And with me today, I have Dr. Hersinta, who is here as a lecturer and a CCAT Research Associate, but also from the LSPR Communication and Business Institute in Jakarta, Indonesia. So we're going to be talking about Barbie today. I'd just like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting today on the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Now this seminar today is a collaboration between the Centre for Culture and Technology and also the Gender Research Centre. So I'll be talking about Barbie, hopefully making some references to gender throughout. Okay, let's get started. So I thought, even though this talk today is not about the Barbie movie, I have to acknowledge that it is out now, taking place, and a big pop culture phenomena happening right now. Now, I think in terms of Barbie, there are two types of people, and the Barbie movie really acknowledges this in their merchandising and promotions, where they say, if you love Barbie, this movie is for you, and if you hate Barbie, this movie is for you. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct, but I'm from the I love Barbie camp. Barbie has been an important figure in my life. I first started writing about Barbie in an academic sense in 2010 when I wrote a book chapter called Dolls with Disabilities, Playing with Diversity. So I did a bit of self-reflection in this book chapter. I just thought I would grab out these two quotes for you today. So I write about during the 80s how important Barbie was to me and my sisters in the context of the patriarchal Protestant social environment that we grew up in. We dressed Barbie in our clothes. We'd never be allowed to actually wear. Boss Ken around. Barbie was in charge. And we did marry Barbie off, but she rode down the aisle in the red Ferrari and married Michael Jackson. So we still got all of these dolls at my mum's house. Okay. And then I reflected on in 1997, 8 months after I turned 18 and 3 months after a massive stroke left me in a wheelchair with paralysis down one side of my body and a shaved head from brain surgery, Barbie joined me again on my journey to adult identity with her friend Smile Becky, who I have over here today in the middle. I'm just going to go over and point out Becky. This one's Smile Becky. So Becky came out in 1997, and I remember at the time I was going through all of this, and it was really exciting for me, even though I was obviously too old to play with dolls. That disability was being represented in the Barbie world. Told my mum to go to the shops, buy one for me straight away, but unfortunately she sold out in 2 weeks, and I didn't actually get my share of Smile Becky until I was in my 30s, I think. So there's my first foray into academic work around Barbie. So when I went and saw the Barbie movie, I was interested in looking for any representation of disability in that movie. There was a little bit, but not a lot, and it has been criticised for putting the disabled Barbies in non-speaking background roles. So we had wheelchair Barbie in the dance party twice, and apparently she's also at the end of the movie in the closing scene, which I didn't even notice her, and critics have said you'll only notice her if you're looking out for her, and I was looking out for her and I didn't notice her there at the end. But something I did notice was in the opening scene where they're talking about how Barbie has had lots of different careers, she can do anything. They had the wheelchair Barbie turn around at the point where they said Barbie has her own home. And I thought that's really interesting, because when wheelchair Barbie came out, her wheelchair couldn't fit in the Barbie dream house. So while they represented Barbie, they introduced some disability representation around Barbie, she couldn't fit with the accessories. Also, her hair was too long and it got caught in the wheels of the wheelchair. So it was sort of an attempt, but not really very well thought through. So I did notice, and I did like in the Barbie movie where they said Barbie has her own home, that wheelchair Barbie was also included there. I like to think it was on purpose, but I'll never know. So these are the two early so-called wheelchair Barbies. They're Share, Smile Becky. Now, Hera and I are just having a bit of a debate right now about which one came out first. I think it was the one wearing jeans, because that's the one with the really long hair that got caught in the wheelchair, and wheelchair also couldn't fit in the Barbie dream house. Now, problematically, the Share Smile Becky, she was the school photographer. So she was sort of heavily criticised for just being there to take photos of the real Barbies who are out there participating in the school-based activities, right? Becky herself, couldn't actually get involved in that. So I'm telling these stories because I think the whole conversation around what these Barbies represent is as important as these Barbies coming out anyway. And when I wrote about Becky, wheelchair Barbie, I was writing about the one wearing the leggings with the bended knees and the funky sneakers. She was dressed for action in a way that Barbie perhaps never has been. So I argue that she has come to represent something else. So Hera and I recently did some more work on representation of disability on Barbies, and we really focused our article on the fashionista dolls. And this is a new line of Barbie that came out in 2019, and it was the most popular selling Barbie range of that year. And what they were trying to do with this range is show more diverse representation. So we've got different skin colours, we've got a number of different disabilities in there, both Barbie and Ken using a wheelchair. So these are a line that came out fairly recently and have been quite popular. And we were also interested in researching this line of dolls because they're produced and made in Indonesia, where Hera lives and works. And that's an aspect of this conversation we don't really engage with very much, where these dolls come from as well. So just to get started on my theoretical positioning when it comes to disability, largely based from a social model of disability, and the social model, as you all probably know by now, having heard me speak a number of times, is defined in opposition to the medical model. So the medical model presents disability as something that should be cured or cared. It's a problem that exists within an individual's body, and therefore it's up to that individual to adapt and deal with any other social issues that arise around that disability. The social model turns this way of thinking of disability around and says, actually, there's a difference between impairment and disability, and impairment exists in the body. Impairment is the inability to walk or any other health issue or impairment that you might have that exists in the body, whereas disability is the way society has reacted to that impairment. And disability can be seen in inaccessible public places, so a lack of stairs, for example, inaccessible policies and procedures. So an example of that is forcing people to communicate in a particular way. And also disability exists in the realm of attitudes coming about through problematic or a lack of representation. So the lack of representation of disability in children's toys comes under the social model of disability. So in about 2015, a deaf journalist from the UK called Rebecca Atkinson started talking about this as well, and she started an online movement called Toy Like Me. And what she was doing through this movement was trying to encourage big toy companies like Lego, like Playmobil, like Mattel, Barbie, to increase their representation of disability in the toy market for kids with disabilities to be able to see themselves, but also for kids without disabilities to start seeing that disability is part of the world. You know, if it's in their toy box, once they go to school, encounter other kids with disabilities, it won't seem so strange. So she, I've got a quote from her here where she talks about how we've got, you know, legislation, we're changing policies, we're changing the way that we create spaces in society for people with disabilities to be able to move in and out of, but still kids with disabilities aren't seeing their experiences represented in children's toys, and she really strongly argued that they should be. So she started by creating a community, and then she started adapting already existing toys and dolls to reflect disability, and then after that began calling on the Legos, etc., to create some disability toys. So here's some examples of Toy Like Me creating their own representation of disability in existing toys. This Tinkerbell character was really one of their earliest and first successes. They put the hearing aid on her and then offered it out for purchase for people to buy from the Toy Like Me community, and it was a raging success, and a lot of kids wanted to have their own Tinkerbell with the hearing aid. And then other people started creating their own sort of Lego wheelchair. There were instructions about how you could create a Lego wheelchair if you so wanted to do. And then there were just a whole bunch of different toys within the community. People at home were making their own thing, really believing this is an important issue. And so what happened next was a print-on-demand toy company called Makeys said we will make disability toys, and people could then order through Makeys. So here's some examples of their toys with disabilities. So this is a small organisation who are responding to this desire from the community to see more disability representation. I think for the kids, but I also think maybe for the adults, you know, for the Katie Ellises and the Rebecca Atkinsons who, you know, were now adults and reflecting back about how important it is to have toys with disabilities. But is this a new thing? Not really. So I've got some pictures here of Legos that arguably are disability toys. And you can see that these Lego characters are representations largely of movie characters like Star Wars, which we within the critical disability studies reflect on as, you know, problematic or stereotypical representations of disability. But they still show we still have had disability toys, but they might not have been reflected as disability toys. These have been recognised as something else. Often they've been medically focused. I've got a picture down here of an accessory wheelchair. I think that's from American Dolls. So these are sort of accessories you give to the able-bodied toys when they have their temporary, you know, injuries that they then come over. They seem to be released at particular commercial moments. So I have done a bit of analysis about the medical history of disability toys. This ceramic doll is from an archive of toys used to teach children who were in hospital during the polio epidemic about what would happen to them. So staff at the hospital using everyday toys to prepare and encourage the children and families to help personalise the process about what these children would go through in hospital as children during the polio epidemic. They're dressed in hospital clothes, some accompanied by their teddy bears in beds made with hospital sheets and blankets. And they even created one with a tiny iron lung. So these mini patients were an attempt to create reassurance in the face of quite drastic and often painful treatments. So we see lots of examples of toys being used within a hospital context to teach children about the experience of impairment and reassure them. So I have also done a content analysis of Billy and Ruth toy catalogues between 1930 and 1963. I find it really interesting to go back and look at disability representation at times where people might not actually be thinking about this. So this was a really quite a gendered experience, quite a gendered and medical experience for me when I went through these toy catalogues from 1930 to 1963. You know, we had nurses' kits for the girls, doctors' kits for the boys during 1940s, but there were no disability toys. The first disability toy that I noticed in this analysis was in 1955 with the 3 blind mice talking toy. So again, like the Lego disability, this is a connection to another representation of disability in popular culture around the 3 blind mice. And there's already been a lot of criticism around stereotypes there. And then in 1961 was the Mr. Magoo toy car, which has been heavily criticised because this is effectively a blind person driving a car. Yeah, and that is somewhat offensive to certain communities. So this is how we're teaching children about disability during this time, 1940s, 55 to 1961 there. So I found this a really fascinating experience, looking at all the old toys, what we're, you know, showing our kids they should be interested in this Christmas. And it comes to disability, it's like, let's laugh at it. That's what these toys suggested to me. And then we could get to the 1970s and something interesting started happening around masculinity, the Vietnam War, and the representation of disability in action figures. So what I've got here is one action figure called JJ Arms, who's based on an actual person, Vietnam vet. And so what JJ Arms could do, he had a lot of prosthetics, but not only did he have these prosthetics, he could, you know, attach to a helicopter, he could attach to this. So exciting. I wish I could find one just for myself. You know, you could attach to all sorts of, you know, vehicles, devices used in war to be sort of an effective human machine soldier, which seems to really tie into that $6 billion man era of the 1970s when we were having those representations in movie. And so at the same time, G.I. Joe had to compete with JJ Arms. So they brought out their amazing Atomic Man, which is essentially exactly the same thing. And I've got a comic here of G.I. Joe, who already invokes a whole lot of hyper-masculine messaging. But when, you know, G.I. Joe loses an eye, an arm and a leg, he can then attach and become even better attached to those machines, be a better fighting machine, which is what G.I. Joe was really about there. So now we're at the 80s. And Hera, am I taking up too much of your time? No? Okay. And during the 80s, there's Cabbage Patch Kids, right? We all had Cabbage Patch Kids. There was a series of dolls called House Pals, which was supposed to be like the Cabbage Patch Kids, but they had disabilities, you know, and these dolls are really quite funky to play with, and they were sort of moving into that more active area. So some of the House Pals, you know, were skiers or they were from a ski resort. How with the Cabbage Patch Kids, you get a backstory and things like that. So House Pals coming up in the 80s. And I've already talked a bit about the disability Barbies. We've got the Beckys, the Paralympics. There's American Sign Language Barbie here. But interestingly, American Sign Language Barbie is not deaf. She's a teacher who's teaching people American Sign Language. So there's, and I think there was a Helen Keller one around the same time too, which, you know, people have written about how much it means to them to have a disability doll, and Helen Keller was available. So that's what they got. And another really interesting one is the Down syndrome dolls, which came out in the late 90s and early 2000s. So these were baby dolls for kids to play with. They were marketed specifically towards kids with Down syndrome. And these were quite medical. There were two different organisations creating the Down syndrome dolls, and each one marketed their dolls on the basis of, we've got, you know, 11 of the characteristics of Down syndrome, or the other one had 17. So they were really trying to be quite medical in their approach to these dolls. Parents were outraged, really, about Down syndrome dolls. So they were saying, no, we don't want our kids to see themselves reflected in these dolls, and they look kind of weird anyway. So there was quite a big online movement around these dolls that I've written about, in terms of parents saying they didn't want their kids with Down syndrome to actually play with them at all. Which reminds me about the house pals. When they came out, child psychologists were saying these are a bad idea. So I've got quotes from child psychologists from the New York Times saying kids with disabilities should not be given dolls with disabilities. They should be encouraged to see themselves as able-bodied, right, and identify with the able-bodied community, which, you know, brings up a whole lot of issues around what people with disabilities need in society, right, around accessibility and better attitudes. So sometimes when these dolls come out, they are heavily criticised. They're not just embraced, and sometimes they're overly medicalised. And now we come back to Barbie. And this is Barbie's Down syndrome doll. So this came out only a few months ago. I think it came out on the day that Her and I published our article on disability dolls. So this is how Barbie are imagining kids with Down syndrome. So quite a different approach. And I don't think I've read any criticism of this particular Barbie yet, but I also haven't seen too much, you know, identification with it. But it is another move for Barbie to go from, you know, their representations of the wheelchair Barbies here. These are still, you know, very good looking beauty myth representation. So to bring in the Down syndrome doll is a positive step, I think. And so I'm just going to end with a picture of my daughter when she was 4. She's 12 now, and she gave me permission to use this. I also look 4 here. So I did get my kids to play with dolls with disabilities. It was important to me, and so I kept my Becky in the box. Stella has hers in the chair there. This was brought over from Professor Beth Haller, who is a big person in critical disability studies, particularly disability in the media and popular culture. She heard that we wanted a Becky, so she brought Becky in the US for us, brought it over so my kid could have a chance to play with a doll with disability. And I think it was really fun for us. Just to wrap up what I have been talking about, popular culture of disability toys really began as a history of medical culture. The toys were used for medical reasons, to educate kids about what might happen to them in hospital and so on. Then through the 20th century, specific disability toys began emerging in mass culture, often along quite gendered lines, and embracing gendered ideas about what it means to be a man and a woman. There were some protests around dolls, particularly the Down syndrome doll and the house powers, which were both created specifically for kids with disabilities. So I wonder if that has anything to do with the protesting. But other dolls like JJ Arms and Mike Power Atomic Man and the G.I. Joe, as well as the Barbie dolls, they're intended for everyone. And there haven't been as many protests around that. Toy Like Me, not first disability toys, but they were probably the first to gain momentum through embracing community and an affirmative model of disability. And the Barbie Fashionista line that Hera will speak about more continues to respond to changing social cultural representations of disability. And I will end on this picture, which has my partner in it too, brushing wheelchair Barbie's hair there. Okay, I didn't get his permission. He doesn't know. Okay, do you know how to change the slides now? I think
we can
do we press out something?
stop and then share the other one.
Okay.
I will try to find which one. Okay, Kevin is here.
Kevin.
Thank you so much. Oh, I stopped the recording.
No,
Okay.
should still be recording. Okay.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, both offline and online also. Thank you for joining this session. So Katie already shared a lot about toys and disability representation. My name is Hersinta. People usually call me Hera, as Katie introduced me before. I'm a lecturer and researcher at LSPR Institute of Communication and Business. It's a private university in Jakarta, Indonesia. And I'm also an adjunct associate researcher at CCAT, thanks to Katie. So my part will be more about highlighting the case study in Indonesia about disability representation and the possibility of toys like Barbie to introduce the concept of diversity through play. And I think we also have our co-author here, Indrati, because me, Katie, and Indrati wrote a paper together in a media and culture journal about Barbie and disability. So I will invite her later also to share a bit about the Indonesian toys industry and how play activities can be used to educate children about inclusivity. So probably, yeah, a bit of a background of this paper and a bit also of personal story, my personal story with Barbie. Like Katie, I was brought up in the 1980s, and as a child, I was a Barbie fan, a bit of collector until now, and I always fond of Barbie and love her various representations of women can have. Barbie can be a rock star. That's my favorite Barbie back in 1985 or 1986. We have Barbie as a rock star. And also Barbie can be a doctor, a teacher, an astronaut, a ballet dancer, a sports star, superstar celebrities, a president. But she can simply just be a woman who just like beach hopping or shopping. So I was surprised one day when I came to Katie's office for a meeting. I was her advisor at that time. And then there was a Barbie, that Becky, in a wheelchair, sit at her desk. So I didn't know that Barbie has a doll in a wheelchair back in 1996. And I think it's a great idea to have a representations in a toys, a person with disability in a Barbie doll. So moving forward 5 years later, in this year, 2023, we came upon a call for paper on Media and Culture Journal on special edition about toys. So in Indonesia, Mattel has the biggest factory that produces Barbie and also Hot Wheels. So we are thinking as a country with diverse culture, it has opportunities actually to use toys representing disability for introducing the concept of diversity for children and other potential customers like the parents, the teachers, and also adult collectors like me. And then we proposed this idea, how toys can educate children on issues of diversity and inclusivity. And we did some literature reviews, and it is known that toys as a form of popular culture, as Katie has explained, can create positive representations for disability, although with also some critiques. So probably I will explain a bit about disability. And as you may know, disability is most often located and defined in medical context. And this also applied in Indonesia, where we view disability mostly within the medical context, although we already adopt a social model in our law of disability. So disability is viewed as a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movements, senses, or activities and may hinder them to participate in their environment. But the current social and cultural approach to look at disability recognize that disability is more than an individual medical condition or limitation. For example, the study of disability arts, popular culture, and media advance the critique of disability representations in dominant cultural system. And we quote one disability activist in our paper. He once said that disability representations in popular everyday objects such as disabled emojis and dolls are important to be included in the daily conversation. So how disability is represented in popular media such as books, movies, and also toys, despite being viewed only as everyday entertainment objects, provide identities to disabled people and can empowering them to have more access to society, which we expect probably can happen in Indonesia. And we found from several previous studies that toys can educate children about diversity. So if you search for hashtags and keywords in social media, there's a popular one, I think it's popularized by Mattel also, diversity in the toy box. It's a statement to address the multiracial and multicultural, so not only to address disability, but multicultural spectrum through child's play, activities, and toys. And I think this hashtag has been popularized also in news media, such as New York Times, such as Forbes. We observed some article in this news media, and also in local news media in Indonesia. They began to include these hashtags and publish article about Barbie launching and Lego launching about toys with disability. So toys can be used to produce and challenge prevailing norms of race, gender, class, ability, and nation. So educating children about diversity to play with a variety of toys that representing similarities and differences in human body, such as different skin colors and other aspects of physical appearance, including disability and impairment, can be used as a strategy to reduce stigma of disabled people and also to promote for more inclusivity in Indonesian society, which probably so far is limited to the middle class society, which can afford this kind of toys. But we argue that providing better understanding about disability and promoting representations of different disabilities through play will allow children to develop more positive perceptions of disabled people. So around 4 years ago, this is the article. Feel free if you want to read that in this Media and Culture Journal. And yeah, we hope also to get some reviews and comments about this. So in 2019, Mattel produced a wider variety of Barbie dolls with disabilities, including this Barbie with Down syndrome in April 2023. And along with this product line, Mattel introduced the concept of purposeful play. So it's an activity intended to create positive impact, including to support diversity. And Barbie dolls were marketed globally, and these dolls were largely produced in Indonesia, including Barbie with wheelchairs, Barbie with prosthetic legs, Barbie with hearing aids, Barbie with vitiligo, and others. I remember I once met one of our presidential staff in Indonesia. She's a female with a hearing aids, and she didn't know at the time that Barbie produced a doll with hearing aids, and she's very happy to be represented in the toys. So again, we are thinking about this idea that in Indonesia, disability dolls can be marketed as one of the key message to inclusivity. However, it remains a big question on how toys and also playing activities can be utilized to educate and advocate for disability. In Indonesia, as a country where disabled people are still largely viewed as objects of charity, we have around 9% or 22.5 million individuals within the Indonesian population that have disability. And currently in 2016, Indonesian disability law has shifted from charity-based to more right-based approach. So it means that we have a legal basis regarding the position and rights of persons with disabilities. But still, people with disability in Indonesia still face challenges and stigma in some critical areas, including to access health services and also to have supports for getting into formal education and entering the labor market and employment. Disabled people are among the most stigmatized group in the country, as probably similar with other Southeast Asian countries. And they largely face discrimination and poor treatment from the society. For example, intellectually disabled children often experience bullying in schools and being neglected by their parents, which finally leads to limited social life and activities, and also cultural belief among Indonesians influence how people view disability, perceiving that some previous study mentioned that having a child with disability is disgraceful and result of karma. So yeah, we still have those kind of challenges. But we think it is necessary to develop strategies for reducing this stigma and discrimination of disabled people and promote for more inclusivity. So providing better understanding about disability and promoting representations of different disabilities through play will allow children to develop that more positive perceptions. Like in children's classrooms, there is a current drive to encourage more diverse toys, acknowledging multiculturalism, and also strengthening children's self-esteem who are represented by these toys, these children with disabilities. And other previous studies that we found mentioned that toys can facilitate play routines among children with disabilities, while for non-disabled children, toys representing disabilities can reduce their anxieties and prejudice toward their friends who have disabilities. But on the other side, research also proves the other way around, where children with Down syndrome, I think you mentioned also about this, prefer to play with a typical doll rather than playing with doll with Down syndrome. These findings somehow reflecting their views, where children with Down syndrome view that non-disabled person as being more attractive. And coming back to Mattel's global strategy to market these ideas about diversity and inclusivity through Barbie and also through Hot Wheels cars, I think it's a part for strengthening their image and brand value, as well creating social bonding with the stakeholders. With this strategy, the toy company views their position as a leading toy brand, and by introducing disabilities in the fashion doll line, that it's very affordable. I think the fashionistas doll, not the one with the wheelchairs, cost around $15 if transferred in Australian dollar in Indonesia. So they can introduce conversations amongst children about disabilities through play activities in affordable way. But from the very beginning of Barbie's conception in the 1950s, the toy was designed to be a fashion doll. And I think it is quite interesting that with this fashionable attires and accessories, Mattel shows that dolls in wheelchair and wearing prosthetic legs and having specific physical conditions such as vitiligo can be fashionable and stylish, thus providing as playful source of entertainment to the children and maybe more attractive to children with disabilities. And also, according to previous studies, Barbie in wheelchair appeared to be one of the most requested items from Mattel's consumers. Interestingly, these Barbie dolls with wheelchairs also produced in Indonesia, but until now, these dolls are not marketed in Indonesia. That's specifically with the wheelchairs. We have Barbie with hearing aids distributed in Indonesia. We have Barbie with prosthetic legs, vitiligo and Down syndrome, and it was selling out actually, but not the one with wheelchairs. This fact also intriguing, as perhaps there are some considerations such as the affordability of the toys, because it's quite more expensive than the regular ones, and probably other reason that we have to dig further. So coming to the next is about the Indonesian toys industry, probably a bit about this. As Indonesia is one of the largest producers of toys, particularly dolls, with a total population of 273 million people that we have in Indonesia by 2021, and with a growing middle class group, Indonesia is considered as an attractive target market. The total consumption of the Indonesian toy market itself indicated prominent growth in the past 10 years. Its values increased at an average annual rate of more than 5%. And as home of the largest toy factories in the world, and approximately half of the toy dolls globally are produced in Indonesia. This is including in the research by Asia Toy and Play Association, a nonprofit association in the Asian toy industry, that as a market, Indonesia is important to buyers and sellers. For example, Mattel Indonesia only is reportedly contributing more than 35% of the total export value of toys from Indonesia to the world. And Mattel has two factories in Indonesia, the East Plant, which produce Barbie dolls, and the West Plant, which produce die-cast cars under Hot Wheels brand. So I think in the past month, I found Hot Wheel cars targeted to blind people. It only comes in white and black colors, if I'm not mistaken, and then it has a braille letters in front of the packaging. So I think we are starting to acknowledge more of that market in Indonesia. So Mattel also involves small and medium industries in the production process in Indonesia. And the company, which has been operating since 1992, has a production capacity of 85 million fashion dolls and 120 million toys cars per year. So it has successfully exported children's toys made in Indonesia to various countries in Asia Pacific, Europe, and also to the United States. So despite this potential of having a huge market of potential consumers, there are some challenges faced by the Indonesian toy industry to market their products, including to market the disability-themed toys. We have specific regulations. We have other factors influencing parents to buy toys for their children, including their awareness and acceptance of disability and how they consider this is important to educate their children about diversity by playing with those Barbie dolls. So before I go on, I think I will invite our co-author, she's online, I think, Indrati, to explain about these challenges in Indonesian toys industry for a bit. Okay, I think I will have to. Okay, Indrati, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello.
Or I should close the presentation first, so we.
Can you hear me?
This one. Stop sharing. Okay, yeah.
Hello. Hello. Hello, Hera.
But
Hello,
we cannot
Kitty.
hear you.
Oh,
So this is move to stage. Make a presenter. Yes. Okay.
can you hear me now?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
There
Yes.
we go.
We can hear you.
Okay.
That's okay.
Uh,
But if we can, then it's good.
The slides.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Indrati.
So you want to
I'm also a lecturer, part-time lecturer in LSPR, Institute of Communication and Business in Jakarta, Indonesia. Apologies for my voice is a bit harsh with this flu, and I think the weather is not quite good back here in Jakarta. But anyway, yes, in this paper I work together with Hersinta and also with Katie on the my part is based on my experience, I mean, practical experience in the toy industry itself. First of all, back in I think it was early 2000, I guess, when my mother-in-law introduced me to her what you call that, a workshop, I would say, because she was a teacher. She shared with me on how difficult it was to what you call that, to market or to even to produce safe block toys that can be used as educational toys for everyone, including the special needs kids that time. What happened was that time to find a paint that is safe, which is, you know, like less heavy metal and things like that. It was very expensive, and none of the what you call that, the government is giving access or giving education about how important it was. So it was struggling to find such paint. And at the same time, when we can find, there is a local paint producer back in Jakarta who provides such things, it was very expensive. So that leads to such toys, the block particularly, it's also expensive and can be only be accessed by very limited schools, very limited parents. Moving along, at the same time, apparently the needs for such particular toys, or I would say that was the educational toys, started to increase some awareness from the teachers and from the parents. So she was happy at the same time when she got informed that government started to enforce. It's called SNE, Standard National Indonesia, or Indonesian National Standard. It's similar to, I think, the conform what you call the safety product in many other countries. So back then, all products, including toys, has to pass and has to get that SNE labels, including a domestic produce. But at the same time, again, because of increased cost for getting the certificates and everything, then back then, my this family business, we decided to close down. We tried to find, there are not many, but there are already a couple of other workshops who what you call that, who try to make sure that their products are meeting this requirement. And since then, my mother-in-law and I was just to go around the shops, and we can see there are more a variety of such educational toys. But again, mostly are imported. So like in our slides, what Hersinta has shown, and now what we found in our literature review, the market in Indonesia, the toys market in Indonesia is still dominated by the imported toys. And again, the SNI, the regulation, it's still actually being applied to all of it. It happens to also I myself that try to import what it's called clay for arts. And again, this requirement to get the SNI label is complicated, I would say. But at the same time, the initiation, the initiative from the government, it's there already. They're trying to approach many companies, many local producers to ensure that all of the products are getting this SNI. So having this fact, it is intriguing, like what Hersinta mentioned. If market is there, the big market, but at the same time, from a business point of view, such requirement is challenging. Then it will be a question, particularly when we're discussing about disability and uh, safety for not only the typical, but I believe also for all consumers. How should what will be the most important here? Is it the cost? Is it the safety and things like that? At the same time, we also found as what we tried to work out with some of colleagues in educational teachers and those who doing practice in play therapies. It is indeed toys that can represent how the society currently, how would I say, to reflect what's happening around the kids at the moment. It is indeed is needed. Most of the toys are physical. Um, Looks like it's more physical disability, but was we were talking about disability, I think it's more wide and putting into the context how it can be used to introduce diversity and inclusivity. That is still a big challenge. So our intention is trying to understand from uh, this situation, how can we move forward with all the fact about the number of population, the growing number of, because playing or toys in this case is also the rights for every kids to have good access. And at the same time, how can we uh, educate or provide information to the parents and related stakeholders on which or how they choose the proper and appropriate toys for the children. With the rise of e-commerce as well, they can buy directly the toys outside Indonesia. But again, if SNI is deemed is considered as a good regulation, then it is a challenge how we can ensure that those products that being directly bought through e-commerce are also following and in line with this rule. I think that's from me. Hopefully from this session we can get some ideas, particularly how to combine marketing and making sure that this idea of making the society and making the children more what you call it learning about inclusivity and diversity in a better way. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Indrati. So actually, this is a bit sort of interdisciplinary paper because Indrati has a different background in marketing, and also she previously, as she told us, worked as a distributor for educational toys, and then yeah, there are some challenges actually in distributing, importing toys from outside Indonesia. And okay, before I wrap up the presentation. I think I want to point out the facts while there are arguments that toys representing disability and impairment have benefits for children. Negative attitudes towards disabled people are still common in society, including in Indonesia. So within the Indonesian context, the issues of inclusivity and diversity are facing challenges, in particular due to many cultural complexities. One previous study that we found in Indonesia reveals that different ethnic backgrounds informs children aspirations. So for example, children with different ethnicities have different values on material and non-material things. This argument can be considered also when discussing how toys and playing activities can shape the understanding of disability in children, whether different cultural backgrounds can influence their expectation on more complex issues such as inclusivity and diversity. So most toys, including dolls, have positive impacts according to previous studies within children's play and everyday lives. However, when it comes to inclusion, diversity, and disability, these same studies indicate there is a complex implication for children's future lives and their ability to accept and normalize inclusion, diversity, and disability. While as a form of popular culture, toys not only function as a play and entertainment tools, but they also contain the possibility to influence children's experience and perceptions. Actually, we did some observation by visiting online and physical toy stores in Indonesia. And during these visits, we found that some Barbie and Ken doll with disabilities were sold out. And one of them is Barbie with Down syndrome. However, when we asked the store assistant about other Barbie and Ken dolls with disabilities, like the one with prosthetic legs and also with vitiligo, they were not well equipped with product knowledge about this product line. And we also observed some complaints about Barbie doll with vitiligo, where a customer commenting that this product has a defect in the doll's paint. After receiving that complaint, Indonesian Mattel official store, then they add more specific information about the product. The faded spots on this doll is a skin condition called vitiligo. It is not a defect. Vitiligo is a disease that causes loss of skin color in the form of patches, and they finally adding a symbol with caption celebrating diversity in the online toy store after that complaint. So this actually highlighting the fact that toy manufacturers must provide comprehensive information of the product in the stores, both online and offline, not only to sell the products, not only to provide the products, but also provide narrative about promoting diversity and inclusivity to the wider society. So our discussion in the paper is actually limited to exploring some existing literature and doing some observations on the topic of toys as a means to educate children on issues of diversity and inclusivity. So considering this limitation, we recommend further exploration, probably to focus on parents' attitudes to toys representing disability in Indonesia, as this will give an insight into the possibilities of marketing these toys and communicating the ideas of disability through toys. Some question we might ask further, for example, whether the technology such as the internet as the preferred e-commerce platform, because more and more people buying dolls from the online stores has more possibilities for opening access for parents to buy these types of dolls for their children. And should Mattel rethink their strategy in making these products more available in the market, including the ones with the wheelchair in Indonesia? So we hope this discussion will spark more ideas into research on disability toys in Indonesia and also Asian countries. And we want to hear from you later about your experience, about your views, opinions on toys and representation, and how can we utilize play activities to teach children. I think that's all from me. Thank you so much. We will have a discussion from you offline and online. Thank you so much. I will stop sharing. Okay.